Hello, my dear friends. How are you all? I hope you all are doing well. So, in this course, we'll learn to create a web-based application like a student management app using the concept of Next.js and Supabase as a database. So, before going into the detailed concept of this course, let's have a look at a project demonstration which will create step by step inside this complete course. Let's go back to browser. So we can see that here we have a Next.js application, and inside this application, here we have a layout of a form which is containing some form input fields like name, email, phone number, gender, and a submit button. And also here we have a tabular format, and this table right now is completely empty. So what is the process? So whenever if we pass any data to this form, click on the submit button. So first thing first, this all data will save inside the Supabase we can see, and inside the Supabase project, here we have a table called students. And inside this table, we can see the columns we have like ID, name, email, phone number, and gender. So automatically, whenever the data gets created inside this table, automatically this tabular format will have some data. Now let's get started to create some data using this form. After passing all these data, click on submit button, and now we can see student added successfully. And here we have our first row. If I go to our Supabase, let's reload. And now we can see that here we have a student entry inside this students table. Now let's go create some more data. Click on add button. And now we can see we have one more row inside this tabular format. Now let's say that I want to update the existing informations of this user. Simply let's click on edit button. And now we can see that the same form we can use for edit operation like to update any informations, and automatically we can see that the add button is changed into update button. Now let's say that I want to update, for example, this email value. Click on update button, and now we can see student updated successfully. And here we have the updated email value. If I go back to Supabase table, let's reload, and now we can see email value also has been updated. Now let's say that I want to delete this row from this table as well as from Supabase. Click on delete button, and now we can see that it is asking for confirmation that are you sure want to delete. If I click on cancel button, no activity, but whenever if I click on this yes delete it button, now we can see it's been deleted successfully. Let's go back to table, and if I reload, and now we can see that that is now successfully deleted from this tabular format. So this is the interesting course what will create inside this complete course by using the concept of Next.js and Supabase as a database. And one more thing, if I talk about the complete packages of NPM that we have to install inside this interesting course, so first thing first, we'll see that how to install Bootstrap, how to use Bootstrap classes to create our interesting layout. Then after, for browser notifications, like already we had seen that student created successfully, student deleted successfully. For such type of notification, we'll use another NPM package, and that is React Hot Toast. And also we have seen that while deleting, we have a confirmation model box, and that is we have used another npm package, and that is Sweet Alert 2. So apart from Bootstrap, React Hot Toast, Sweet Alert 2, and finally for the database, we have to use Supabase as a database npm package. So inside this complete course, we'll use four different packages to complete this interesting journey, to complete this interesting project. And finally, friends, I have only a simple request from my side that if you think this course is really very helpful to understand to create a CRUD-based application using Next.js and Supabase, so please do subscribe, and also please hit the like button to like this video. Now let's get started to complete this step by step to create a CRUD-based application student management app using Next.js and Supabase as a database. Now from this video topic, we have to start the development concept where we have to include the concept of Next.js 15th version and Supabase as a database. So first thing first, I'll create a setup of Next.js 15 into my local system, and additionally after that, I have to create an account over Supabase. So first, let's go back to project terminal. I'll install a setup of Next.js 15th version. So command will be something called npx. Either we can use npm or npx to create a Next.js setup. So I will use npx. So npx space create hyphen next app at the rate latest. Hit enter. And now we can see it is asking about project name. So right now I'm inside this next hyphen Supabase. So let's call it as project hyphen one. Hit enter. Now it is asking that would you like to use TypeScript or JavaScript? So by default it is coming with yes option. It means whenever if we install this project one, it will come with TypeScript. Let's go with the default value. So yes here, then yes length, yes here, then Tailwind CSS. So inside this complete course, I will go with Bootstrap. So I will go, let's say the default value no, hit enter. Then here, would you like to create our code inside src directory? So let me tell you that whenever if I select this yes option, so all the application files will go inside src directory. But if I go with this no value, it will create an app folder. So first I will go with this no selection, hit enter, app router, yes option, turbo pack, default no option, and here default no option. Now, as you can see, the installation process now started. So we have to wait for a while because behind the scene, it is installing some dependencies and dev dependencies. Now successfully, as you can see that project one now created and it has installed 301 packages into that application. Let's go back to folder structure. So now we can see that inside this next hyphen Supabase, it has created a folder that is project hyphen one. And remember, while creating our setup, we have chosen that is src directory no. It means that there will not be any src directory. We'll get all those files inside app directory. So if I go, let's check here. And now we can see inside project one, here we have app directory. But in that case, if suppose if I select yes, then it will create an src folder, and inside that src, this app folder will exist inside that. Now, what next? So simply, I will open this setup into my VS Code, and then after I will execute and see its landing page. Let's go back to project terminal. So here, cd, let's say project one, this is the setup what we have created. Hit enter. Now, if I go and open all these code files into my VS Code editor, now next after this, if I go inside this app folder, now inside this app folder, we can see here we have a fav icon, then here we have globals.css, layout file, page modules, and page.tsx. Now what next? I will execute this entire application to see its landing page into browser. Let's go back to project terminal, and here if I type npm run dev, hit enter, and now we can see Next.js 15.1.7 version now started at localhost 3000 port. So simply I'll press Ctrl, click into this link, and now we can see the landing page of our next application. Now, next after it, let's create an account over Supabase, which we have to use as a database for our next application. So what I will do, let's go back to its official website, that is supabase.com. So to use this platform as a database, first thing first, we have to create an account over this web application. So simply to create an account, click on the sign in button first, and here we can see an option that is sign up now. So before making this video, I already created an account over this web application. So simply I'll go and log in. And successfully, after passing the email and the password, now I can see that successfully I am logged in into the dashboard of the Supabase. So right now in this account, I don't have any organization. So we can see that it is asking to create a new organization. So simply let's pass the organization name. So I will call or pass the channel name. Type of organization will be personal and I'm using the free plan. So after passing all these basic values, click on this button, create organization. Now, next after it, I can see some more options that is a database password. Here we have the region, and then after security options, and here advanced configurations. So let's choose a database password. So I will pass any random value. Then after region will be default selected Southeast Asia. If suppose if you want to change simply from this drop down, you can choose your region from here. I will go then with this default options. Click on this button, create new project, and successfully, as we can see that our first project now created inside this Supabase. So we can see project API keys. Here we have the public key, service role, then after a URL and JWT secret. Now automatically in few seconds a screen will change and it will look something like this. And here we can see a loading icon inside this project status. But for the time being, we want two things from this project account, and that is if I scroll, here we have the project URL and an API key. So what I will do, let's go back to editor inside our next application and at project root, let's create a file and I will call it as .env local. Then after into this file, I'll create two constant like two environment variables, and that is if I call it as next underscore, let's say public underscore superbase underscore URL. And into this environment variable, if I go and copy this project URL, let's copy and simply put here. And then after, let's create one more key that is next underscore public underscore Supabase underscore in underscore key equals to, and the API key we get from the second value. Let's click on this copy button and just paste here. Now successfully into this next application, here we have two environment variables that is a Supabase URL and Supabase API key. Now next after it, I want to create a database table inside Supabase and the table name will be called students, and the columns we want something called ID, name, email, phone number, and gender. Now the question is how to create this table inside Supabase. It's very simple. Let's go back to browser. Now inside this project dashboard, we can see project status equals to green now. Then here inside this left hand sidebar, here we have an option that is table editor. Let's click into this menu and now we can see create a new table. Click on this button. Now here, create a new table under public. So here we have to pass the table name. So I will call it as students. Then after, it is an optional field like description. So students table will store student values. Then after here we have enable row label security. So I will go and uncheck that because this database I want to access inside our next application. So simply let's confirm. Now it is unchecked. Then after here we have to pass the columns. What basically we want inside for students table. So I want ID as a first column. Then after name, here we have to choose the data type. So name I want something a string value. So text here, add a new column. Then I want for email. Here it will be text. Then after we want a phone number, like a phone number column, data type. Let's pass text here. And finally I want a gender column. So it will also store the string value like male and female or other. Now successfully, here we have all those columns of what basically we want for students table like ID, name, email, phone number, and gender. Now I want this ID should be a primary key of this table, so ID here and primary checkbox will be checked. Then here, name field is okay for this email. Here we have the settings icon. Let's click on the settings icon. So I want that. Let's uncheck. Then I want that this column will be unique throughout this table. Let's check. Then go inside this phone number, uncheck. Check here is unique, like phone number is also unique for all students. And gender, let's click on this checkbox and uncheck. So simply, now everything is okay. Click on the save button and successfully, as you can see that it is now creating a table with 5 different columns. Now finally, after going through some basic settings of the Supabase, now here we have a table schema, table skeleton of these students. Now what next? So simply, we have to create a layout inside this next application, and inside that layout, we'll have some form input fields like for name, email, phone number, and gender. So whenever if any user fill that form, click on submit button. So after submission, we can use a Supabase table to save those values into that table. Now to start the development process, I'll first install some required packages into this next application. So here into this course, I'll use the concept of Bootstrap. So we'll install first Bootstrap so that I'll be allowed to use some classes to create layouts. Then after to show browser notifications, I'll use the npm package called React Hot Toast. It will be for notification. Then after for some confirmation, I'll use the npm package that is of sweet alert too, and this is for confirmation. And finally, as you know that obviously you are using like the database as a Supabase, so Supabase itself a npm package. So we have to install at the rate Supabase forward slash, and it will be Supabase hyphen js. Now to install these packages, let's go back to project terminal, top this development server, and then after let's npm, I want to install those 4 packages into single go. So npm, either I can type install or simple I. Then after our first package will be called bootstrap. And one more thing before installation of all these packages, if I go to package.json, now you can see inside this dependencies, only we have 3 packages like React, React-DOM, and Next. Let's go back to project terminal. So npm I bootstrap, then after sweet alert to for confirmation, then after React Hot Toast, it will be for notifications, and for the database, here we have called Supabase forward slash Supabase hyphen js. So once we type all these packages, hit enter, and now you can see installation process now started. It will take some time because we are installing 4 different packages. And okay, we are getting some error, and error is that it is not able to find this package. I think some spelling mistake. Okay, inside this Supabase, here we have to pass a small a, hit enter. Now successfully, as we can see that all those 4 packages now installed into our next application. So to confirm, if I go into this package.json, and now we can see that inside this dependencies object, here we have the Supabase, Bootstrap, React Hot Toast, and Sweet Alert. So successfully, so far up to this video, here we have the local environment variable file as well as the required packages, what basically we need to complete this project. Now next after it, either we can create the layout or let's create first a database instance. So to create that instance, what I will do at project root, let's create a folder and I will call it as leave. And inside this leave folder, let's create a file called Supabase. Next.js. Now in this file, I'll create a database instance. Database instance is nothing. It's an object. By the help of that, we can easily connect with the table what we have created inside our Supabase project. So here, what I will do, let's say import, and inside this from and the package remember we have called Supabase, Supabase-js. And from this package, I will import, let's say, create client. Then after, let's say, const Supabase URL. And inside this, remember, we have local environment variable file which contains two keys. So I want this URL. So it will be process.env dot. And if I go, let's copy this next public Supabase URL. Then after, let's say const Supabase key, Supabase key equals to process.env dot. And if I go, let's copy this second key and it will return the Supabase key. Now finally, let's export const and let's call it as Supabase and here create client. And inside this, we have to pass the Supabase URL and the Supabase key. Now, successfully, this is our database instance. By using this instance, we can easily use the table either for any operation, like for insert operation, delete operation, update operation. In fact, we can select all those data from students to this next application. Now let's get started to create our layout. Inside that layout, already we have discussed, we'll have some form input fields like in terms of name, email, phone number, and gender. And also inside that layout, we'll have a submit button. So whenever, if I click on submit button, simply we have to pass all these data. And by using this instance Supabase, we have to save that record into our table. Now next, to create the layout, simply let's go inside this app folder. Inside this app folder, we'll see two important files that is layout.tsx and here page.tsx. So all those content, what we can see here, right here, all these contents simply we can find inside this page.tsx. So at runtime, this page.tsx is loading inside this layout.tsx. So let's make very simple this layout.tsx. So what I will do, I'll go simply remove, let's all these code. Also, I will remove this globals.css, this font from here. Let's remove this one as well. And I will import first the bootstrap. So import bootstrap dist folder, CSS folder, and I will include bootstrap dot main.css. Now, once we import, and here inside this metadata object, let's remove this description. And here, let's say next app with Supabase. Now, let's remove this class name attribute from this body tag. Save these changes of layout.tsx. Then I will go into this page.tsx. And here, let's remove first two lines of code. And here inside this home component, what I will do, let's remove all these code stuff. And for the time being, let's say fragment. And inside this, let's pass h1 tag. Welcome to next 15 with Supabase. If I save these changes automatically, the code gets compiled. If I go back to browser and let's start development server. So npm run dev, hit enter, started. If I go and now we can see the output as expected, that is welcome to next 15 with Supabase. So instead of just this static message, now let's create some layout. So instead of using this h1 tag, let's create a div with using a class called container. Remember we are using the concept of bootstrap. So container, I'll passing my-5. Then after, let's use s3 with class mb-4 and into this I will call it as student management. And then after, let's create a div with class row. And inside this, I'll create two designs like a left hand side design and a right hand side design. Inside our left hand side design, I want a form. Inside that form, we'll have our input fields as well as a submit button. And inside the right hand side design, I want the tabular format so that whenever if we create any student data, automatically those data will save into Supabase and automatically that data also should be listed inside right hand side table. So here, first I will make a comment. So it will be left side form, and here let's add one more comment here, and this will be right side table. So first I will go with this left side form, and here div class I will pass call MD4, call MD4, and inside this I will create a card. So div class, let's pass card here, and inside this I will pass one more class that is MB-4, and inside this I will create one more div with class card body. And inside this, we have to create our form layout. So form, and inside this, actually inside this form tag, also we have to pass our own submit event handler function. But for the time being, I want an empty form. Also, we have to remove this action attribute. So let's remove, just go inside this form tag. And inside this form tag, let's say div. And I want to use a class that is mp-3. And inside this div, first I'll create a label tag, so label, and inside this label, let's pass form label. And inside this label tag, for the time being, we don't want this HTML4 attribute. Just I will go here and let's first pass the first input that is for name. Then after this label, let's input form control, and I want to create input type text. Class name will be form control, and let's say value. For the time being, it will be an empty value. So what I will do, I will copy the same piece of code. Let's paste three more times because after name we want for email, and in this case it will be type equals to email form control. It is okay. Value will be empty. Then after we want something phone number. So phone number, and here input type text is okay. Form control is also okay. For the time being value is empty. It is also okay. And here it will be gender. So instead of using input type text, let's use select drop down. So here, and inside this select, I will pass the class name as it will be form select. And here, let's pass some options. So option 1 will be male, and inside this value, let's pass male. Inside second option, female, and inside third option, let's make one more value and other. And finally, let's create a button. But for the time being, if I save all these changes, let's go back to browser. And now we can see that. And also here we have an error. Let's click here and OK. It is asking that you provided a value prop to a form field without an onChange handler. So to get rid of this error for the time being, what we can do, just remove this value attribute. But in a moment, we'll add this value attribute, and additionally, we'll add one more attribute, and that is onChange event handler. So if I save these changes, if I go and let's reload one more time, now we can see that we don't have any error. And right here inside this form, here we have the name field, email field, phone number, and a gender field. Now we want a button. Now to add that button, let's go after this gender, and I will use button tag. Let's pass add a label, and inside this let's pass some classes, and the classes will be called btn-primary, and I want 100% width of this button, so simply w-100. Save these changes, and now we can see that inside this form here we have the name field, email, phone number, gender, and a submit button. Inside this right hand side, I want a table. Let's go back to editor. And after this comment, let's add a div with class call empty8. And one more thing, if you are not interested in designing or by means of this bootstrap, this is not an issue for this project because in this project, our main focus is to interact this Next.js application with Supabase. So inside this div class, let's add one more div and I will call it as table responsive. Now inside this div, here we have one more div, and inside this div, I will use table tag, and inside this table, let's say table as a class, and table hyphen bordered, and inside this table, I'll use t head, and inside this t head, let's add a class, and that is something called table hyphen light, and inside this t head, I want the table columns as table header, the columns as name. Then after we want email, phone number. So let's call it as phone only. Then here gender. And finally, we want one more important column, and that is called action, because inside this action column, we'll have the edit button as well as delete button. So after this t head, let's add t body. And inside this t body, let's use a dummy row like table row. And here, for the time being, let's pass a static value. Inside this second TD, I want some email. Inside this third TD, I want phone number, something a dummy value. And inside this action, let's pass two buttons. So the first button is for edit operation. So the label will be edit. And here the class name will be something btn, btn hyphen warning. And one more class that is btn hyphen sm. It will be me-2. Now, next after it, I want one more button, and that button will be for delete. So, delete as a label, and inside this class, let's say btn, btn-danger, btn-sm, and me-2. Save these changes. Let's go back to browser. And now we can see that tabular format is okay. But additionally, also here we have some error, and that is in HTML, th cannot be a child of th. And I think that the error is from actually these th tags will be inside tr. So just go and add inside this tr. Save these changes, and now you can see that error has gone. Here we have our form inside left hand side, and here we have the tabular format. This form is only to fill the values. Click on add button. So whenever this form will be submitted, we have to create a new record inside stable schema using Supabase instance. And additionally, those data from here automatically gets listed inside this tabular format. So let's go inside page.tsx, and at header, let's import some packages. So we are using Next.js, and inside this page.tsx, I have to use the concept of use effect, use state, and form event. So as we are using the concept of use effect and use state, so inside this page.tsx, we have to use a keyword, and that is use client. Now, in your mind, the question is why we are adding this keyword use client inside this page.tsx. So let me tell you that inside Next application, all components by default are server component. So to make this component as a client component, we have to add a keyword use client so that we can use the concept of use effect and use state. So after this line of code, let's go at line number 2. So import, and I will import from React, and let's import first use effect, and then after use state, and also will use form event. Now after this, let's import our Supabase instance what we have created. So Supabase instance is from Remember lib folder, so it will be at the rate, and here we have not actually this one, /lib /supabase. And from this supabase.js file, remember we have exported this Supabase instance. So just copy and put it here. Now in the next line, also we are using the concept of closed because to show browser notifications. So also we have to import, so import closed from React host closed, and also we want to import the closed container. So it will be closed container. Now next after this closed, also we are using the concept of switch alert. So let's import as well. So simply import, and it will be SWAL from Switch Alert 2. So whenever if we use the concept of Switch Alert, it will open a model, and that model has some design. So here Switch Alert comes with own CSS. So also whenever if we want to use the concept of Switch Alert, also we have to import a CSS file. So it will be import. We have to go inside Switch Alert 2 package. Then after dist folder, then after switch alert to .mean.css. So successfully all those packages and files what basically we need now successfully we have imported inside this page.tsx. As we're using like TypeScript, so let's create an interface of a student. So student object, so student is containing ID, then name, email, phone number, and gender. Let's define its type. So this ID, it will be a type of a string value. It is also contain string value. Name will also contain a string value, and phone number is also contain a string value, and gender is also contain a string value. So if I talk about the table schema, what we have created inside this Supabase, so the column names will be ID. It is matching with the interface property. We can see ID, then name. So if we compare about each columns, here we have the phone number and here we have the phone. So let's add phone underscore number. So successfully now this is our interface object of a student. Now let's go inside this home component. Next, inside this component, we want some state variables. So const, the first state variable, which will be responsible to list all those data what we'll have inside Supabase to our tabular format of this HTML. So students is the variable name, and here we have the state manager of that variable. So equals to use state, it is of type student, and initially this variable will contain an empty array. Then after, let's create one more state variable which is going to manage our form data. So here form in set form equals to use state. It is also a type of student, and initially, if I go to this student interface, we can see that it is containing ID, name, email, phone number, and gender. So it is an optional field, but we want some initial values of these properties. So here, let's say name will contain an empty value, then email, empty value, phone number, empty, and here we have the gender, and in this case, let's say by default value of this property equals to male. Now, one more constant, like one more state variable I want to create, but that state variable will use whenever if we do the edit operation. So let's create const. It will be edit ID. Let's say set edit ID. So use state, and initially it will contain the null value. Let's define its type. So either it will be a string value or null value. Now successfully, here we have our state variables. So first, it will be responsible to list all those data into a tabular format. It is going to manage our form data, and by the help of this state variable, we'll set the edit ID whenever if we do the edit operation. Now, next after it, if suppose I want to access this property like name, so it will be accessible like form.name. So what we can do inside this name, let's add a value attribute, and I will call it as simply form.name. Let's go for this email field. So value, it will be form dot email. For phone number, let's add value attribute and it will be form dot phone number. And for gender, value and it will be form dot gender. Also, we have to add one more attribute here, and that is onChange event. So why we are using onChange event? It's because whenever if we type any value, for example, inside this name field, so on changing any value inside each of the field, simply we have to update this property of this state variable. So what we can do, let's go first try with this name field. So I will add onChange and here, just go inside this function block and I will use the concept of setForm. So what is setForm? SetForm is the state manager here we have created for this state variable. So whenever if we type any value for this name field, so by using this setForm and the name property, we have to update this respective property of this name field. And also remember, if we have suppose the existing values of this email, phone number, and gender, also, we have to keep the existing values while updating any property of this state variable. So here, what we can do, just go inside this set form. Let's pass first event object of this form. And here, set form and object. So first we have to get the existing values of our form state variable. So 3 dot form to get the existing values, then comma. So this is for the name property. So name equals to event dot target dot value. So whenever if we type any value for this name field, so by using this set form, we get first the existing values and then after that updated value of this name field. Now we have updated inside this name property. The same thing we have to repeat for this email field. So let's go here on change event and inside here let's pass event object. Then after we have to use set form parenthesis. So first we have to get the existing values of this variable and then after also we have to update the email property by reading the value from the current element to our email property. Now next let's go for this phone number. So it will be on change and here inside this set form parenthesis put an object. So first we have to get the existing values of this variable. Then we have to update the phone number. So event dot target dot value. And now finally, if I check name field is okay, email field is also okay, phone number is now okay. Now let's do for this select drop down. So on change and here parenthesis event and not actually object set form first. And inside this parenthesis, first we have to get the existing values and then after gender will be updated with this updated value. Now successfully, we have done the addition of two attributes inside each of the field like value attribute and onChange event attribute. Now next after it, let's go back to form tag and inside form tag we have to use an event and that is on submit. It means whenever if I click on submit button, this function what we are writing will be called. So here let's pass handle form submit. So simply I will copy this function name, then I will go here and let's add a comment and that is let's say handle form submit. Then function name event and it is type of form event and further it will be HTML form element. Let's go inside this function block. So here inside this function block, we have to use the concept of Supabase instance to interact with the table what we have created inside Supabase project. So simply, first thing first, if I go and console.log and if I print form, because inside this form, like a state variable, we have stored all the form data. So if I save these changes, let's go back to browser. And if I go and reload, let's go inspect, click on console tab. So if I go and do something like this, let's pass values inside these fields. So here, sample name, sample at gmail.com will be the email value. And for phone number, I am using something dummy value. Click on add and OK. Form is reloading. So to restrict what we can do inside this handle form submit, let's event dot prevent default. Save these changes. Now if I go, let's reload one more time and let's pass value. So sample at gmail.com, something a dummy phone number, mail is selected. Let's click on this add button and now we can see that on submission of this form, now here we have the complete data like name, email, phone number and gender. So as these properties are matching with this table schema columns, so what we can do, it's very simple now. Let's go here. But now inside this handle form submit, it's very simple. We have to use the concept of Supabase instance to call our table called students, and by using a method called insert, simply this form data we can easily insert into the table called students. So how to do? So await keyword Supabase instance dot from, and inside this we have to pass the table name called students, and inside the student I want to insert some data. So insert method parenthesis array, and inside this array I want to insert this form data. So what the data we are inserting, it is of type this student. So as we are using this await keyword, so here we have to use insync function. Save these changes, and one more thing, after insertion it will return in case of any error. So it will return an error object. So here let's if I'll use this. So if any error like while insertion, if we get any error, simply I will use toast dot error, and by using this error method, let's say that failed to create. And one more thing, this toast we have imported from React Hot Toast. So let's scroll down. So failed to create, and additionally, if we want to log the error message as well, so it's again very simple. Let's get use backtick symbol, put here. So if I want to display the error message of Supabase, so in that case, dollar parenthesis, sorry, curly pairs error, it's an object, and by using message property. Otherwise, inside this else block, if successfully we have added our data into table, so in that case, let's say post dot success, let's say student added successfully. And one more thing, after insertion or in case of any error, if I want to display this toaster message to our layout, to our HTML file, so in that case, remember, also we have imported this toaster, not toast, it will be toaster. So this toaster also we have to use as a component right here inside this HTML. So for example, like before this h3 tag, let's use this toaster. Save these changes. Now, if I go and OK, here we have some error that is failed to construct URL. So create client, and this is from Supabase.js, Supabase key, OK. Actually, inside this Supabase.js, we have used the same key two times. Let's copy this URL and just put it here. Save these changes, and now we can see that error has gone. Now let's create our first data for this table. So this will be our first student inside our Supabase database table. Click on this add button and OK, now we can see student added successfully. And if I go back to our table, let's reload. And now we can see that successfully what the data we have created from this form. Now I am getting that form data into this table format. Now let's create one more data here. And one more thing, also I want that after creating data, this form automatically gets reset. Now to reset form data, let's go back to page.tsx, and here inside this handle form submit, what we can do, just copy this set form, and after this if else block, let's say set form, And inside this set form, I will put the same object values. Let's copy this piece of object and just paste here. Save these changes. So if I go, let's reload. Let's create one more student. Dummy phone number, mail is selected. Click on add button and I can see student added successfully. Also, form has been reset. If I go to our table and now we can see data created. So successfully, this is all about the insert operation, that how to insert the data from this form to our Supabase table. Now, next after it, also we have to work on the functions. If suppose what the data we have inside this list, also we want these data should be listed inside this tabular format. Right now, this table is containing only the static value, what we have put as a static row tr inside our table. So let's go back to editor. Now in this case, what we can do, so this is for insert operation. Let's create one more function and that function will read all the data from Supabase table. So here, let's say fetch students data. I will call it as, let's say function fetch students. And in this function, simply, let's say const, it will return data. And in case of any error, will be inside this error object await Supabase dot from, and inside this we have to pass the table name called students. I want to select all the columns, so select will be the method, and inside this select, let's pass this asterisk. It means I want to select all those data of this students table. So as we are using this await keyword, so this function will be async in nature. So after getting all those data, we have to get inside this data variable. And in case of any error, simply we have to read the error message from this error variable. So what we can do, let's check here that if we have any error. So in case of any error, I'll go simply and let's say toast dot error, backtick symbol, let's say fail to read data. And if I want to print the error message as well, so dollar curly pairs error dot message. Otherwise, after getting all those data from table, let's go inside this else block. And in this time, remember, we have the state variable that is students, which will be responsible to store all those data to list data into tabular format. So simply, I will copy this set students, then I will go into this else block. So let's say set students, and in this data, if we have the data from our Supabase table, otherwise it will contain an empty array. Now here we have the function which will read all those data. Now this function I will call into use effect. So what we can do, just copy this function. Let's go here. So use effect, and inside this curly pairs, and inside here I will call this function called fetch students. Save these changes. So if I go, let's reload. Nothing will be in console, and it's because if I go back to function inside this fetch students, let's go inside this else block and I will call it as console.log, and let's print all those data. Save these changes, and if I reload, and now we can see that inside this console, here we have array of two object, and this is the two rows what we are getting from this Supabase table. So what we can do here, simply we have to iterate over these data, and simply we have to print all these values right here inside this tabular format. Let's go back to editor. So what we can do, here we have the state variable called as students, which is containing the array of data. Let's copy. Then I'll go here inside this static table, and here let's use expression. So students dot map, and here inside I will iterate over each single student, and inside here let's cut this tr from here and simply go inside this parenthesis and just use all this HTML. Now here, first we have to get the student name. So let's copy single student, And here, instead of a static value, single student dot name. Like name is the property we can see for the name value. So here we have the name. Let's go. So again, I will copy for this email. Let's put here. So single student dot email for phone number, single student dot phone number for gender, single student dot gender. Also here we have two buttons that is for edit and delete. So what we want whenever if anyone click on this edit button, we have to call a function and that function will populate the existing data to a form and from that form we can update the existing values of that student. And in case of delete here, whenever if someone click on delete, simply will take a confirmation that are you sure want to delete if he presses or if the user presses OK button. So simply that student will be deleted from this table as well as from Supabase. Now for action buttons, what we can do, just go first for this edit button. So let's say on click and into this, I will call a function called handle. Let's say student edit. And into this function, I will pass complete single student object. Let's go inside this delete button. So on click. So first I will check that single student dot id if id exists. So in that case, let's call another function called handle student delete. And in this, I will pass single student dot id. Let's copy this edit function. Just go up and here, let's say handle student edit. And in this case, function name. And in this function, we are passing the complete single student data. So it will be student and it is of type of this student. After that, what we can do, remember, also we had taken a state variable that is called edit ID. So in this case, as we know that we are fetching the data from Supabase, so it is also returning ID value. So what we can do, so here inside this first, let's copy this set form and inside this edit function, let's say set form and inside set form, what we can pass inside this, we can pass all those data, what basically we are getting for single student. And also we can check that if student.id, if it exists, so in that case, set edit id equals to student.id. So if I save these changes, if I go back to browser, and also here we have some error that is unique key prop. And this is coming because if I go inside this tier, let's add a key prop single student dot id. Here we have also the red color error. Let's copy this function and what we can do, let's say handle student delete. And in this function, basically we are passing the id. So let's say id and it is of type of a string. We can assume for the time being. Now save these changes. Let's go and if I reload, and now we can see that this time these two rows now dynamically is coming from Supabase. So whenever if I click on this edit button, so this function block will be called and inside this function we are setting our form with the existing data and also set edit ID equal to a student ID. So what we can do, if I click on this edit button, automatically all these data will be set to this student form. Let's click on this edit button and now we can see this student. If I click, now this student. So also here we have a single button. So what we can do, if suppose if we have clicked on this edit button, so in place of add, it will be update. So what we can do, simply let's go here. Where is the button? So here we have the button. So in place of add, also we have to add conditionally. In case of edit operation, this add should be update. So edit ID, if it is containing the value apart from null value, so in that case, we have the update option. Otherwise, we'll have an add option. If I save these changes, so if I go, and now we can see that here we have the update button. So if I reload, so initially Edit ID will be null. So in that case, we can see that here we have the add option. But whenever if I click on this edit button, the edit ID is going to contain the ID of that student, and automatically on the condition of edit ID, this add button, the label will be changes from add to update. Let's click on this button and now we can see update. So what we have to do next, so simply whenever if I click on this button and if edit ID has a student ID stored into it, so in that case, instead of insert operation, we have to run the update operation to Supabase table. Now for this update operation, we'll use the same function what basically we have created to handle our form submission, and that is handle form submit. But in this function, we can use the condition of edit ID. If edit ID contains any value, we'll go for update operation. If it is containing null value, we'll go for add operation. So after this console.log, what we can do if edit ID if it has some value, we'll go for update operation. Otherwise, inside this else block, we'll go for add operation. So for add operation, already we have the existing code. Let's cut all this code, go inside this else block and put here all those code stuff. Now let's go for this update operation. So await Supabase, Supabase dot from, and we have to select our students table. This time we have to use instead of insert method, we have to use update method. And here additionally also we have to use a function called EQ. By putting this EQ method, we have to put condition that is which student I want to update into Supabase table. So inside EQ, as we know that we are storing the edit ID, it means student ID. So on the basis of student ID, I want to update the existing data into table. So ID and it will be equals to edit ID. And inside this update, inside this array, simply pass the form data what we have stored while edit operation. And here, like what the data we are passing, this is type of student. Save all these changes and in return, let's say const error. In case of any error, it will return into this error object. So let's say if error post dot error, let's say failed to update student, and in case of else block, simply let's say post dot success student updated successfully. Save these changes. So if I go back to browser, let's reload. And for example, I want to update this first student. Click on edit button. And here, let's say Vijay Kumar updated, like the name value only. Click on update button. And now we can see student updated successfully. And if I go, let's reload. And now we can see that name has been updated into our table. But also I want that once that value will be updated, this tabular format also will contain the updated informations. So in that case, what we can do, just go to editor. So what the function we have created, fetch students, just copy after this edit operation in case of success response. Let's put this fetch students. So if I save these changes, let's reload. Click on this first student, and if I want to update like the name value, let's update the email value. Click on this update button, and now we can see student updated and also the list of that student updated. If I go and reload, and now we can see table data updated. So successfully, we have now completed the add operation and update operation, and also this is the list operation. Now let's work for this delete operation. So I want that whenever if any user click on this delete button, confirmation will appear. It will ask that are you sure want to delete, and this will do by using switch alert. So if user presses OK button, so in that case we have to execute the delete method of Supabase to delete that student from our Supabase table. So what we can do, just go here and inside this method what we had created called handle student delete. In this case, let's say const result equals to await. As we are using await, so it will be async. And here sval dot fire, and inside this we have to pass some properties, and that properties will align the suite alert model what basically I need to open for confirmation. So if I go back to documentation of suite alert, so simply if I type suite alert to, click on this suite alert to of npmjs.com or simply suite alert to .github.io, it will open a documentation. And if I scroll, here we have examples. And now we can see that here we have an example. So if I click on this try me, so it will open something like this. And this is the same pop-up I want inside our application. So what we can do, just copy this sval dot fire. And if I put inside here, let's copy this result. So if result dot is confirmed. So in that case, let's say await is confirmed. It means that if user presses yes button or OK button, so await Supabase dot from table name call students, and then we have to go with this delete method dot eq, and here id, and id is nothing, it's a deep id, and also the data what we are deleting, it is of type student. And here let's say const error in case of any error. So let's say if we have any error, simply post dot error, it will be failed to delete student. Otherwise, let's go inside this else block, and here post dot success. Let's say student deleted successfully. And also I want that after delete, the tabular format what we have inside right hand side also gets reload. So in that case, the function what we have created to fetch all those data, let's copy this function, simply go here, and after delete, let's simply call save these changes. So if I go, let's reload. And for example, if I want to delete this first student, click on this delete button, and now you can see it is asking that are you sure. If I press cancel, no activity. But if I press yes, delete it, now you can see, okay, here we have some error that is failed to delete a student. And I think that, okay, it is not working because of this ID. And this ID, what we are passing inside this function, let's pass inside this ID, save these changes because edit ID is only gets enabled when you press edit ID button. But here, ID is already we are passing inside this function, so ID equals to ID. So if I save these changes, let's go and reload. Click on this first student, click on yes, delete it. And now we can see student deleted successfully, lost from this table. And if I go into it, let's reload Supabase. And now we can see student deleted. So successful. Now, this is the overall CRUD operation of this student management using Next.js 15th version with Supabase table. Let's do one more entry. Click on this add button. As you can see, student added, but table not reflected. So what we can do, I will copy the same function. Let's go here inside this handle form submit, and instead of writing inside for this edit operation, let's call this function after this if else block. Save these changes. Let's go and reload. And now we can see we have two rows. Let's create one more. phone number, female, click on add option, and now we can see student added, and here we have the correct data. If I go, let's reload. Here we have the data. Let's go for edit operation. Here we have the edit operation. So Vikram underscore updated. I'm updating the email value. Click on update. We can see updated value. Let's click on this delete button. Just delete it. And now we can see student deleted. So successfully, now we have completed our entire project, which is at the initial level to learn the concept of Supabase table as well as along with the Next.js application. So, friends, I hope that once you completed this interesting project, obviously you can mention into your resume, into your CV that you have the knowledge of Supabase with Next.js application. And inside this course, I have explained each concept step by step so that you can get all these concepts of this interesting journey. So, for this interesting course, interesting journey, please hit the like button to like this course, like this video, subscribe to this channel. Now, let's meet our next amazing course. So for this session, guys, thank you for watching and have a great day.